Hi friends, I am CA Naga Hanuman Madhu. Today we are going to discuss about tax implications and consequences of non-deduction of TDS. Please like this video, share this video and subscribe to our channel by clicking the bell icon. Before going to the consequences of non-deduction of TDS, first let us understand what is the concept of TDS, why the government has introduced the concept of TDS, who has to pay the TDS and when it has to be remitted to the government account. TDS, tax deduction at source. Before the introduction of concept of TDS, what if a taxpayer is paying the taxes at the time of filing of return of income in the month of July or in the month of September, the government is losing the money for the time period the moment the revenue is generated by a taxpayer till the moment the tax has been paid by the taxpayer. That means in the month of July or September. So because of considering the time value of money, the government has introduced the concept of TDS, tax deduction at source. That means the moment any taxpayer generates any revenue, he has to pay the taxes. So that is the concept of tax deduction at source. Now let us see who has to deduct the TDS. Any person making any payment which are liable to deduct the TDS under the Act has to deduct the TDS and remit to the government. Individuals and HUF who are not subject to the audit, that means the books of accounts are not required to be audited by an accountant, are not required to deduct the TDS. However, there is an exception in 194IA and IB. Even these persons are covered under 194IA and IB. So, when the TDS has to be paid to the government account? From the month of April to February, 7th of the following month, and in the month of April, 30th of April. That means any person making a payment in the month of April to February has to deduct the TDS and remit to the TDS account of the government before the 7th of following month. However, in case of deduction in the month of March, it has to be remitted to the government account before the 30th of April. We understood TDS has to be deducted at the time of any person making any payment which attracts TDS under the provisions of the Act. So let us see when TDS has to be deducted first and foremost. The TDS provision says TDS has to be deducted at the time of credit to the GL or at the time of payment, whichever is earlier. That means, for example, let us say X has supplied some material to Y. X has issued an invoice to Y of rupees 100. So now Mr. Y is accounting the invoice in his books of accounts as payable. So the moment the Y is enters the his books of accounts as payable, he has to deduct the TDS. Or let us see another example. In case X did not supply any material, however, he raised a pro forma invoice for advance payment. So the Mr. Y is making the advance payment to X for supplying some material in advance. So at the time of making the payment to Mr. X, Y has to deduct the TDS in advance. So the TDS has to be deducted at the time of credit to the GL or at the time of payment, whichever is earlier. So now let us see what if the TDS is not deducted but not paid to the government account. So let us see the consequences of non-deduction of TDS or deducted but not paid. The first and foremost consequences, there are three types of consequences. The first and foremost is disallowance of an expenditure, and the second one is interest and penalties, and third one is prosecution. So first let us go to the first implication, disallowance of an expenditure. Disallowance of an expenditure is prescribed under section 40A and IA of the Act. So section 40A says in case of non-resident, 40A IA says disallowance of an expenditure in case of resident. So what is the section says? In case of any SSE pays any interest, royalty, fee for technical services or any other sum which is taxable under the Income Tax Act, he has to deduct the TDS and on such expenditure and the TDS has to be remitted to the government account within the due date specified. What if any SSE did not deduct the TDS who is liable to deduct the TDS under the Act? Then 40A and IA says disallowance of an expenditure incurred. So 100% of expenditure disallowance in case of non-resident, 30% of disallowance in case of resident payment. However, there is an exception provided in the Act which says if TDS has been deducted but not paid within the due date specified in the Act and it has been remitted to the government account before the due date specified under section 139(1), that is before the filing of original income tax return. So if you deducted but not paid to the government account within the due date, but if you are remitted to the TDS to the government account before 139(1) due date, that is before filing the original income tax return, then the assessing officer will not disallow the expenditure incurred. Even if TDS is not deducted at the time of paying, later point of time, if you deduct the TDS and make the payment to the government account before the filing due date under section 139(1), then also the expenditure will be allowed by the assessing officer. What if even if we did not remit the TDS amounts to the account of government even before the due date specified under 139(1), then the expenditure will be disallowed. However, whenever we make the TDS payment, in that year we'll get the allowance of an disallowed expenditure. For example, let us say for financial year 17-18, we did not deduct the TDS and we remitted the TDS along with the interest to the government account in the year financial year 18-19. That is after the due date specified under 139(1). So you will get the allowance of an disallowed expenditure for FY 18-19 in FY 19-20. Here you should understand it covers both the concepts, TDS deducted but not paid and TDS not at all deducted. The both scenarios are covered here. So here comes the next consequences, interest and penalties. The first consequence is disallowance of an expenditure by assessing officer. The second consequence is interest and penalties. What if a person fails to deduct or deducted but not paid to the government within the due date specified time, then he has to pay the interest. So what is the rate of interest specified in the Act? Government has specified two types of interest rates for two consequences. The first one is deducted but not paid, not at all deducted. So the government has proposed for higher rate of interest 1.5% for every month or part of the month in case of deducted but not paid, because if you are deducting the government money and withholding the government money with you, so the government is charging an extra interest from you. So that is the reason if you deduct the TDS and did not remit to the government account within the due date specified, you have to pay the higher interest, that is 1.5%. In the other scenario, that means if you not at all deducted the TDS, then you have to pay the interest at that 1% per month or part of the month. Here the key point you should understand is the interest rate is not based on the number of days. The interest rate is based on month wise. That means even if you delay TDS payment for 1 day, you have to pay the TDS for 1 month, for 2 months. So let us take an example and understand how the interest will be calculated. For example, a person while making a payment in the month of February, which is a transaction attracts TDS against which he did not deduct the TDS in the month of February. So he did not pay the TDS before the 7th of March. However, he remitted the TDS amount to the government account on 9th of March. That means 2 days beyond the due date. Even if he delayed the payment of TDS to the government account for 2 days, he has to pay the interest from the date of deduction. That means from the month of February. So interest has to be collected. Interest has to be paid to the government account from the month of February, from the date of deduction to the date of payment, that is month of March. So friends, please understand, interest has to be calculated from the date of deduction, but not from the date of default. What if a scenario, the person did not deduct the TDS at all? Then he has to pay the interest from the date on which TDS has to be deducted to the date on which TDS is paid. So to put it in a nutshell, 1% in case TDS is not at all deducted, 1.5% in case TDS is deducted but not paid to the government account. Now let us go to the penalty provisions. Section 271C says any person in case of default of TDS payment, then he has to pay the penalties up to the default of TDS amount. So friends, now we understood the consequences of non-deduction of TDS is not alone the disallowance of an expenditure by assessing officer. Along with the disallowance of an expenditure, the assessing officer will levy interest and penalties. Now let us go to the last consequence, prosecution. So before going to the prosecution, let us understand the process followed by the department in case of prosecution. CPC TDS will generate two categories of list. The category 1, it is called as list A. The category 2, it is called list B. So list 1 consists of defaulters more than 1 lakh, and list B consists of defaulters from 25,000 to 1 lakh. So that means whoever has defaulted more than 1 lakh, they fall under mandatory processing for prosecution and they fall under list A. So list A is generated by CPC TDS within 1 month of filing of TDS return, ETDS return. So list A is mandatory prosecution, friends. If you default more than 1 lakh, then you will be selected mandatorily for prosecution. Now coming to list B. List B consists of defaults more than 25,000 but less than 1 lakh. So while generating the list B, CPC TDS along with the current defaults, it will generate a list which consists of previous defaults as well if the information is available with the CPC TDS, and will pass on to the AO TDS to take necessary action. Along with list A and list B, CPC TDS will generate one more list which consists of non-filers of ETDS returns, and this also will be communicated to the assessing officer TDS for issuing notice and for further prosecution procedure. So here comes the prosecution details. Section 276B says in case of default which is confirmed after following the standard operating procedure given by the CBDT, then section 276B says imprisonment up from 3 months to 7 years along with the fine. So imprisonment alone is not the solution. Imprisonment alone is not the punishment. Along with the imprisonment, department will levy the fine. However, there is an immunity given under section 278AA of the Act, which says if an SSC proves that there was a reasonable cause for such failure, that means if you could justify that there is a reasonable cause for not paying the TDS to the government account, then he can apply for immunity under section 278AA. So this is the standard operating procedure given by the CBDT for launching the prosecution. The first one is identification of potential cases, and the second one is entering in the register in Form C, and the third one is CIT TDS also maintain a register in the form of Form D, and the next information regarding deductor is collected by AO TDS, and then AO TDS will issue a show cause notice within 45 days of receipt or list from CPC TDS, and within 30 days the taxpayer has to reply to show cause notice. Upon receipt of reply, AO TDS shall examine the reply reasons for non-compliance given by the SSC and shall prepare a proposal in Form F and send it to CIT. After receiving the report from CIT TDS, after receiving a report from AO TDS, CIT TDS shall submit a report within 60 days, and CIT TDS has also accorded sanction under section 279(1) for giving the approval for prosecution. And CIT TDS also, after hearing the SSC, he will make his mind clear whether to proceed further for prosecution or not. In case of any complex situations, the CIT TDS will take counsel opinion. Then, after attaining the conclusion, CIT TDS will enter the prosecution into prosecution register. The SSC at any stage of proceedings can file an application before the Principal Chief Commissioner or Chief Commissioner of Income Tax Act. Then the CAT TDS, after recording the sanction under 279(1), shall send back the records to the authority for seeking sanction order in duplicate, one for filing in the court with the complaint and other for record. Here authority means AOTDS. Once the AOTDS receives the records from the CAT TDS, he shall enter the details in his prosecution register maintained by him and also make sure that the complaint is launched in the competent court. So the CAT TDS and AOTDS both will make an entry in their respective registers maintained by them. So similarly, if any prosecutionable offences comes to them during the prosecution proceedings, those consequences also will be recorded by them in their registers. So till now, we have seen the consequences of non-deduction of TDS, that is disallowance of an expenditure, interest and penalties and prosecution. So friends, in order to come out of all these consequences, there is an exception provided in the Act. It's a Brahmastra. Here comes the Brahmastra. Section 2011 provides for the exception. Section 201 says, in case if an SSC fails to deduct the TDS, he shall not be treated as SSC in default under Section 201 if the payee pays the taxes on such income and he has considered the income in the return of income of payee and furnishes the return of income by payee before the due date specified under Section 139(1). That means, in a scenario where the SSC did not deduct the TDS, but the payee has considered the income in his return of income and paid the taxes on it, which is within the due date of return of income, then you will not be treated as SSC in default. So you can come out of all these consequences, interest, penalties and prosecution. In addition to that, the payee has to furnish a certificate in Form 226A to the deductor to substantiate that the said income is considered by him in his return of income. What is the Form 26A? Form 26A is an online form. The deductor, whoever is a deductor, has to initiate the Form 26A request to the payee, and the payee has to fill the details and send back the form to the deductor in online. All these transactions will be in the online. So the form has to be sent back to deductor. Once the deductor receives the Form 26A back from the payee, then he has to get the DSC affixed to the form and download the Form 26A. However, there is a small misconception involved here. Many people think that if they get the Form 26A and the respective payee pays the taxes on the said income, they will be not penalized or they need not pay any interest. However, see Section 201 says the SSC will not be treated as SSC in default on the date of filing of return of income by the payee. So that means the SSC who has not deducted the TDS will be treated as SSC in default till the date of filing of return of income by the payee. So that means it is interpreted that the SSC has to pay interest from the date of deduction till the date of filing of return of income by the payee. So friends, even if you obtain Form 26A, the section will not make you free from the obligation. You have to pay the interest from the date of deduction till the date of filing of return of income by the payee. However, there is a lot of litigation involved in Section 201 relief. The Section 2011 says the word resident. Till the Finance Act 2018, it says resident. So that means the relief is extended only to the resident. However, Finance Act 2019 made an amendment in Section 2011 by replacing the word resident with the payee and by extending the relief to non-residents as well from financial year 1920. So that means the section says 2011 relief for obtaining Form 26A is available only with the residents till financial year 1819. From financial year 1920 onwards, the relief is extended to non-resident payees as well. However, this is not an correct implication, because how can a section give a relief to a resident alone by discriminating the non-resident? So there is always a litigation involved for till FY 1819 by not extending the relief to non-resident. So friends, by this litigation is completed. So far we have understood the concept of disallowance of an expenditure, and the interest and penalties will be levied by assessing officer, and the litigation involved. To summarize for the benefit of mass, I gave a pie chart over here. For example, if you make a default of 100 rupees for one day, the exposure will be like this. So you may end up with 3% of an interest and 100% of an expenditure disallowance in case of an non-resident, and 30% of expenditure disallowance in case of resident, and 100% of penalty, and 300% of 100% of expenditure disallowance. So दोस्तों, if you make any default of rupees 100 for one day, you may end up with paying that 3% interest and 100% of penalties along with the prosecution if sum exceeds the specified amount. Thank you friends. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. You can reach me to the below given email ID or to the WhatsApp number given over here. In case of any queries or further assistance, kindly reach me to the given details. In the next video, I am coming up with the procedure explaining how to file a Form 26A. That is our Brahmastra. Thank you. Thank you.